Hey everyone, happy Sunday. If it's Sunday, it must be another writing video, right? I think I'm going to start calling these fireside chats since I'm standing in front of my mantle on my fireplace. That sounds a little bit better, right? This is our third one. Hopefully third time's is a charm. We're going to talk today about description. Description is something I think writers are either naturally good at or something they kind of struggle with. I find writers in genres like science fiction or fantasy or historical pieces kind of naturally do description well because they have to do a lot of world building. They have to explain what all these things that the reader is encountering are because maybe they don't exist in our world. Then you have writers like me who don't do description well and who really struggle with how to incorporate it in a way that's interesting and compelling in their writing. And one of the things that I've always been kind of taught to do or told to do is to make sure that you're incorporating all five senses, which, I guess I name them off for you, right? Sight, sound, smell, touch. Sight, sound, smell, touch. What am I forgetting? Sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's the best one, and here I am forgetting it. So how do you incorporate those in a way where you're not just like checking it off a list? And when should you incorporate each one and why? Well, that's really simple. You should incorporate it as naturally and organically as you can. And you should do it in a way where it's not just a description. You're telling something about the character or the location, or how the character is interacting with the location. It's not just about what it looks or tastes or smells like. It's about how that character feels about it. That makes it a good and compelling description. We'll start with something easy, which obviously is sight. That's the easiest one to do and the easiest one to kind of come up with examples for. What would be a really bad description for sight? She walked into the blue room. Who cares, right? Tell us something about the blue and tell us something about how that blue made her feel. Maybe it was a light sky blue and she knew that she was somehow going to get herself out of the situation because it reminded her of spring and it gave her hope. Or maybe it was this deep, dark cobalt blue and she felt like she was underwater and drowning and trapped. Those are kind of cheesy descriptions, but you get the point, right? Like, it's not just about what it looks like, it's about how that character feels about it. So that's the easy one with sight. Let's move on to some of the other ones. Let's do smell. I love to talk about smells because I think it's really interesting what someone says about it. Let's take, for example, someone's coming home for like a family reunion or something, right? You want to know how that character feels about it. If they walk into the house and they're like, they smelled bread baking in the oven. Well, okay, what does that tell you about the character? But if she walks in and she says, I immediately smelled cinnamon and clove and honey and nutmeg, and it took me back to all those Christmases when I was a kid and my grandma making chutney and on the stovetop and how the whole house just smelled like Christmas. That shows you that it's a good smell and she's excited about coming home. But if she walks in and she said, I immediately feel like it's like walking into a thrift store, that she walks into this damp, dark, musty house and she feels a certain way about it. Maybe she's not happy she's coming home for this reunion. So those are two good examples of how the character feels about it. That also tells you something about what she's experiencing. The same thing goes for touch. Is she wrapped up in warm, luxurious towels, or are they small and scratchy and feel like sandpaper? And she, wonders when she's ever going to have money for linens. Those are two ways that you're talking about touch that resonate and that mean something. What you don't want to do is say something like, she petted the soft, fluffy kitten. Well, pretty much all kittens are soft and fluffy, and petting them like that doesn't tell you anything. So now we've kind of talked about, good and bad ways to do each one, right? So touch, smell, sight. Let's hit sound. I think a bad example of sound maybe would be, her boss yelled at her and it felt like the walls were shaking. Okay, I think everyone's been yelled at that way, where it's like, oh, it feels like it's not illuminating in any way. It doesn't tell you anything about the character other than that she's getting yelled at. But if her boss brought her into his office and he spoke to her in this menacing staccato whisper, and it took her back to being yelled at by her grandfather or something, like not everyone has experienced that, and you can see how that would be terrifying, and you would have a hard time with it, rather than just saying her boss yelled at her, which who cares, right? So that's a good and bad example for sound. Let's move on to the last one, which would be taste, right? I'm gonna use an example from my personal life, right? Anyone that knows me at all knows that, I love to eat with the exception of green flippin' beans. I hate green beans. Even if you call them haricot vert and say they're French, they're still green beans and they're gross, right? Why do I hate them? Because even when you cook them in bacon fat or saute them in onions, they still are slimy and limp, and they're greasy. They have no taste. They just kind of lay in your mouth, and they're visually unappealing. Like, there's nothing good about them, right? That's how I feel about green beans. Now, if I had said to you, yeah, I don't like green beans because I don't like the texture. Well, thanks for sharing, Lisa. Like, okay. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you that I had this relationship with green beans where no matter what you do to them, I hate them. So there you go. I was trying to do this in under 7 minutes today, and I think I'm gonna. So that's some examples for you on how you can bring illuminating, innovative, exciting description to your writing, where you incorporate the 5 senses in ways that tell you something about the character and how they feel about where they are and what they're doing. So I hope that helps you with your writing. We'll see you next week, and when we talk about something different. I think we're going to talk about dialogue next week. So I'll talk to you then. Thanks so much for watching.